Hey, I'm Andy Chanley. This is 88.5 the SoCal Sound, and today we have a SoCal Sound session with Dan Wilson of Semisonic. Good to see you again.
Thank you for having me back.
The new album is right here. It's called A Little Bit of Sun, just released, and the single that you've been hearing a lot on 88.5 the SoCal Sound this last month is The Rope, and we'll be talking about that and much more. The first full album with the band in 22 years.
22 years.
That, my friend, is how you do a sabbatical. Well done.
You know, I really feel it. I learned a lot during those 22 years.
Tell me everything that's happened since then, and don't skip a detail.
I relaxed a lot.
When is the Trip Shakespeare reunion coming?
Oh, that seems less likely.
I went to school in the Midwest at Purdue. I had a roommate that had a Trip Shakespeare album. It had like an octopus on it or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember, especially regionally, Trip Shakespeare, pretty well-known band at that time. And what's interesting is the Semisonic sound as well. And I imagine you're part of the connecting link in all of this. But another roommate of mine liked early Urge Overkill.
Oh, yeah.
And there was from Chicago.
Band,
It was something, I don't know, tribal about bands like Trip Shakespeare and Urge Overkill. I don't know, Algonquin or something. It seems like there's a Venn diagram, especially with the rockier stuff, that kind of I don't know. It seems like it's a northern Midwestern sound.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I think we all, Flaming Lips, also a lot of bands that were kind of quirky and tried to sound like Led Zeppelin but couldn't. And we all played the same clubs in the Midwest in the same kind of circuit.
I didn't really delve into this before when we had talked. You're kind of a polymath. You make music, and pretty to a great degree. I won't embarrass you with a list of your CV, but go and look up. Go and look up songs written by Dan Wilson with so many different people. But you also do art, which is what when you were in school, when you were in Harvard, you art was kind of your thing, right?
Yeah, I thought I was going to be a painter, and in fact, the picture of the squid and the whale that's on the cover of that Trip Shakespeare album that your roommate had was of one of my paintings.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so I've always had. A friend of mine was really annoyed with me once when we were in our early 20s trying to figure out what we're going to be in life, and he said, if this music thing doesn't work out, what do you think you'll do for a living? And I said, I guess I'll make paintings. And he was like, no, that's the wrong answer. Damn you,
You're going for the money.
It's just like. He wanted me to name some sort of, like finance or whatever. I don't know what, but
That's great. But by the way, a little bit of a curse with a name like Daniel Wilson.
Yeah.
You're not the only person in America with that name. We were just talking about that before we got started.
Right.
It can cause confusion sometimes. When you go to danwilsonmusic.com, there's a section where I can find your art.
Right.
But if you go to danwilsonart.com, you get this guy from Utah with a lot of paintings of Jesus.
That guy's a pretender, basically. He's not the real Dan Wilson. That's me.
It's you.
Although there's another songwriter who's really good, producer-songwriter named Daniel Wilson, and I actually think I have a session with him next month.
Do you seriously?
Yeah.
Speaking of people that you've written with, Carole King. I mean, just go down the list of some of the people and throw out some that I'm leaving out. Taylor Swift, Adele, the Chicks. Of all of the people that you work with, and how often a year would you say you have a songwriting session, whether formal, arranged by management or labels, or just getting together with someone that is professionally in the business to write music? How often a year do you do it?
Well, I suppose 2 or 3 times a week, maybe 2 times a week. Wow. So, and Christmas and New Year's off. So
150 times a year?
80 or something like that, 90.
It's crazy.
I don't know. And a bunch of those sessions, though, are with people that I already know and that I've already done things with. Or I'm halfway done with a song and we have to get back together and try some other things. Or we end up, I end up with some artists, I end up writing like 6 or 7 songs and only one of them turns out amazing and we use that one.
Right. I won't put you on the spot, but I want you to think about this and answer in just a minute. We're going to hear one of your songs. Cool. But of all of the people that you've written with, can you think of someone in particular that you've learned something from a songwriting standpoint? And we'll come back to that question in just a minute, but you're going to play some music.
Yes.
You're going to do us 3 songs. The first one is the first track and the title track on the new album, Little Bit of Sun. What can you say about the title track? It's dear enough to be the name of the album.
I wrote it. I wrote most of it in a pretty short time, thinking about hopefulness. It was the end of 2020, and I was thinking about getting back together with the guys in Semisonic. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool if Semisonic wrote a whole record that sounded like Full Moon Fever by Tom Petty? So, given those thoughts and a kind of hopefulness in hard times, that's where the song came from. You
were talking about Full Moon Fever. And wanting to capture that kind of feeling. That's a personal favorite of mine. The Jeff Lynne produced, there's a slickness to it, but there's also, it just seems so inviting. It just seems so accessible, that music.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, one of the things I love about that era of Tom Petty is it's just dead simple. The songs, there's almost nothing happening in the songs. Like there's almost no songwriting even happening. So,
Free Falling is what, 2 chords?
You either get it or you don't. You either love it or you don't. It's like, anyway, I definitely, I know a lot of chords, but I do admire people who can not use them, and I suppose I'm that person too.
Going back to the question that I asked a bit ago, songwriters that you feel like I'm sure you've taught a lot to, especially fledgling songwriters. When Alison Pontier was here a year or so ago, she said, I'm going off to songwrite with Dan Wilson.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that are on an upward trajectory, work with somebody like you that really knows the ropes. Yeah. Who's taught you a thing or two?
Oh, I mean, I don't want to say anything too goofy, but I feel like I learn from people all the time. And it doesn't, like one thing, for example, Allison, whether this is a new learning or just an encouragement of something I might, over time forget. She and I were talking about one of her videos, and I was saying I just love that video.
She has great videos.
Gorgeous video, and it's beautifully done. And she goes, yeah, I directed that, and I also ended up editing it too. And I was like blown away. I said, how did that happen? And did you know how to do that in advance? And she said, no, I just learned how to edit for that. And that was just like a reminder, like that there's no reason not to try to just do it yourself and see how it turns out. And she's obviously very, very, brilliant at that stuff. But it's like, yeah, you don't necessarily need to outsource something like that, even if it sounds kind of intimidating. Another person I learned a bunch from is Rivers Cuomo from Weezer. And Rivers and I were working on a song called "Ruling Me," and we finished the song. I went back to Minnesota. I was living in Minneapolis at the time, and made a demo of it, and I sent it to him, and I sent it in an email, and I said, I love this song, but the lyrics sound too innocent to me. And Rivers emailed me back, we can edit the innocence out. And I just love that. I was like, that's instead of like, oh, the song's broken, never mind, we're going to throw it away. It was more like, well, we can take this abstract trait and edit it out of the song. And then he sent me a rewrite of the lyrics like 5 hours later, and they were hilarious and very sort of spicy and naughty, and it was like not innocent at all, and it was great.
That's funny.
Yeah, I learned a lot from that.
Speaking of innocence and not having it anymore, I was thinking about bands that have had a hiatus, like Blur.
Yeah.
The new Blur album, Ballad of Darren, really enjoyable album, but it's a band at a different juncture in their lives.
Yeah.
They're older, they're smarter, they're wiser, perhaps, and the music they're brave enough now. They're comfortable with being a little bit softer and and less maybe being more. Songs like "Don't Fade Away" on this album. It seems like there's a bit of existential searching in Semisonic at this point, and you're seeing things through a different lens than you did 22 years ago.
Yeah, well, I think sort of my mission statement to the guys about the album was we let's trust ourselves to sound like ourselves and not worry about updating the way we play our instruments or the way we hang out. Like, let's not update anything in that way. And I'm just going to write about the things that are happening in my life, as I always have. And that'll be, in a weird way, that'll be the update. It'll be like we're all kind of different people in some ways. And it's not like a search for relevance or like being more marketable somehow. It's just more like, how do you grow as an artist? Well, you just like address the things that are happening right now. So I think "Don't Fade Away" has that feeling about it. It's like it's very live in the moment. It's a little scared about life, and it's a little scared about nature. Oh, life, don't fade away. Partly that means to me like, I hope we're not killing off nature, But it also means like, I hope I can live longer. I hope I have a lot of life left to live.
I was saying earlier, your list of songwriting credits it's obscene. it's an embarrassment of riches. Some pretty heavy hitters that you've worked with. But at some point, when you have a list that long, one or two is luck. But at some point, you have to have a uniquely suitable personality for that kind of thing. You have to be likable, fun to be around. Yeah. And when you come in here, every time you visit, invariably you ask about something that's playing on the radio. You're curious about, and intellectually curious about new music, and artistically curious. What characteristics for somebody that wants to do what you do and be in a writing room? What do you always put in your back pocket before you walk in?
Well, I mean, I guess the first thing is you just have to be willing to share a new idea that you had in that moment. Like, there's some kind of arrogance or self-confidence or just like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed vibes that you have to have where you can say, well, what if the song did this instead, and then you sing it to them. And I think that's like, I don't want to skip that. But most of the rest is like, I used to say that if the engineer knew how to like plug things in and get a good clean tone for the instruments, I would always choose that person plus a really good manner, like a good hang, someone who was just a good hang in the studio. Because we would end up having to spend like 14, 16, 18 hours a day with somebody. I'm really happy that they can make the bass sound super killer, but I'm actually happier if they make me laugh and it's pleasant to be with them.
Right.
So I guess for me, like, I'm almost talking about what I'm looking for in other people. I want to have a good time. I don't like toxic people. I don't do sessions with people who are geniuses but reputed to be mean. Like, it's just, life is too short to hang out with mean people all the time.
It's true.
So don't be mean.
All right.
Have new ideas, and don't say too much if you don't have much to say. Like, those would be my 3 things.
I like that. That's good. Just life advice in general. You kind of took the calories out of being famous. You take the calories out of ice cream with the way. Look, you're in a band that
because being famous is the greatest excuse to be mean.
No. I mean, as Semisonic, you're internationally known. When you're on stage,
right.
People know you on every continent,
right.
And you're fans of your solo work. They know you, and they sell out your shows. So you have a degree of fame, but
Right.
you are, Taylor Swift can't walk through, Warner Center and go to Saks and buy a pair of sunglasses.
Yeah.
But you kind of can do that a little bit.
Yes, I agree.
It seems like you got the best of both worlds. Got it.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it may also be because what I was visualizing, like I was talking with some friends a couple years ago, and I sort of I had this kind of revelation about what I was trying to do in my music for a long, long time. And especially when it was hard to do recording in your house with a computer, before that era.
Right.
I really thought of my music life as this long scam of getting people to pay for studio time so I could record songs. So I was always trying to convince labels to put up the money so that me and a bunch of friends could go in the studio for a month and make a record. It always seemed like I was kind of tricking people into that in a way. But also what's missing from that dream is I actually didn't think, I'm going to go on, Jay Leno or Jimmy Fallon or whatever. I'm going to perform. I'm going to I didn't really, I forgot to have that component of the visualization. So I didn't get those things. I mean, I played on those shows, but I didn't get the kind of personal fame because it never occurred to me that it would be something that I wanted.
Yeah. Last time you were here was 2019, December of 2019, just before the world ended.
That's right.
And you were talking about getting back together with Semisonic and doing some work with them. You had, I think, just about finished the EP that we got several months later. Mm-hmm. And you're going to play a song from that EP, aren't you? To play us out here. But it's always a pleasure to talk with you. We have lots of fun just talking about music. So come back anytime. And what's next? What can we expect with Semisonic the band? What can we expect from you? What's on your plate?
Let's see. I think next year we're going to be playing. The Semisonic's going to be playing a bunch of shows.
Great.
And I don't know how many, but kind of as many as will take us, will do. And I am, that kind of satisfies me recording-wise, so I haven't really been thinking about making any solo records for a while because it's been really gratifying to work with the band again. So I think I'm right now really launching back into a bunch of writing and producing for other people, which will be, I think it'll be I think it's going to be a good season for me.
I have a hunch. Probably will be. The new album is out. It's called A Little Bit of Sun. Go buy that wherever you buy records. Dan Wilson from Semisonic joining us at 88.5 the SoCal Sound.